The hero of the Minish, the hero of the Four Sword, the first of our combined heroes in this adventure through the Zelda timeline. Nicknamed Four, his character is a combination between Link from Minish Cap and Four Swords. Considering in Four Swords adventures, Link can turn into a Minish using a hat, as well as in Minish Cap, you literally make the Four Sword. Yeah, I can see these two being the same person, and considering there is a manga out for both of these games, we will be briefly going over them. Now, before we start talking about the game, let's reiterate what we're doing here. We will be going over how JoJo had characterized Four in their comic Linked Universe, a comic series that follows 9 Links answering the question, what would happen if all the Links had to adventure together? I'll be going over each link in the comic. You can catch episode 0, where I explain what we are doing here, in the description below. I'll also be adding the episode before and after this one when I get done with them in the description below as well. Let's get into talking about the 2 games Four is from. Starting off with Zelda Minish Cap. Minish Cap follows young Link during the Pickery Festival, where a wizard by the name of Vati turns Zelda into stone in search of the Light Force. The King of Hyrule then tasks Link to find the Pickery and fix the Pickery Blade to defeat Vati and save Zelda. On his journey, he meets Ezlo, the talking bird, hat, thing, who teaches Link how to shrink to the size of a Minish. Oh, and Pickery is just what the Hylians call them. These little dudes are called Minish. The Minish task Link to find the 4 elements and fuse them with the blade. Doing so, Link creates the Four Sword. No, literally, he does. After that, Link defeats Vati, returns Zelda to normal, and saves Hyrule. Side note, this game takes place in the span of 1 day. In Four Swords Adventures, Link goes to the castle because the seal that locked Vati away is breaking. But during the ritual to strengthen the seal, Shadow Link appears and captures the 6 maidens and Zelda, then tricks Link into pulling the Four Sword, splitting him into 4 and releasing Vati. After, the 4 Links have to go and save the maidens and Zelda, while Shadow Link keeps showing up and being an absolute little menace. After that, saving the maidens and defeating Shadow Link, defeating Vati and escorting Zelda to freedom. Never mind. Gosh darn it, Ganon. Ganon shows up, and finally, after defeating Ganon with Zelda's help, Link returns the Four Sword to its resting place, marking the end of this adventure. Also, I need you guys to hear Shadow's laugh. Now, we are also going to have to talk about the Four Swords manga, mainly because, as you will see later on, the split version of Four, also known as the Colors, seem to have the manga version of their personalities. Now, JoJo has stated that not much will be taken from the manga, but we should still talk about what happens in it. In the manga, Link's father was the captain of the Knights of Hyrule. His father says that Link is an arrogant kid, which we see at the beginning as he saves a lady. After Zelda gets to hear Link's dad complain about Link, she gets to hear Link complain about his dad. Wow, Zelda, so proud of you being the family therapist. Anyways, now it's time for Zelda and the 6 maidens to check on the seal of the Four Sword, for only the maidens to disappear, and in their place is Shadow Link, who kidnaps Zelda, and Link draws the Four Sword. I will be referring to the links as what they are the colors of: green, red, blue, and Vio, short for Violet, and then when they are together as Link. Each of the links have a different part of Link's personality. Green is focused and motivated, blue is hot-headed and aggressive, red is innocent and optimistic, and Vio is calm and collected. After some time, the 4 get separated, and during this time, Vio ends up teaming up with Shadow. It was mainly to get information, but the others seem to not know this and think of him as a traitor. In the end, Vio rejoins the team, telling the information he has stolen. Shadow gets a redemption arc, and they defeat Vati, and everything is alright. Oh gosh darn it, Ganon, again! I hate it when he just shows up out of nowhere. Anyways, they kill Ganon, Zelda is saved, Link has reconnected with his father during this journey, and he can finally put the Four Swords to rest. The end. From here on out, I'll be referring to Link as Four, based off of what he is the hero of the Four Sword, and when he is split as green, red, blue, and Vio, and while he is split referring to all of them as the Colors. Starting out with design. In Minish Cap, Link has a classic green tunic, but no hat. he gains Ezlo as a guide, who ironically becomes his iconic hat, only with the bird head at the end type of thing. In Four Swords, Link has the classic hat and tunic, but after pulling the Four Sword, Link splits and now has 4 of him that look identical but with different colors being green, red, blue, and violet. In JoJo's design, Four's tunic is split into 4 colors, resembling all 4 of the colors he can split into, as well as a green hood having a metal beak design at the end as it is reminiscent of Ezlo. Also in the anniversary edition of Four Swords, Link can shrink at will using a hat. Four's hood seems to have that same effect. Four's hair is also a reference to the stained glass hero's hair in Minish Cap, along with a Minish feather earring and keenstones on his belt. We also can see how when Four splits, the colors even have their fancy design on their tunics where they are when they are fused. It also looks like each of the colors have a slightly different shade of hair, making each one look slightly different. I'm also going to point this out that Blue puts his hair behind his ear. Love that. 10 out of 10. Alright, let's talk about what kind of weapons Four has used throughout the comics so far. He is, of course, seen using the Four Sword, and with it, while fighting, he tends to use much larger sweeps with his blade. In Minish Cap, Link is taught the Tiger Scrolls, each giving him different techniques and skills. Four shows this in the few times we see him actually fighting. He actually fights quite aggressively, using his small size as an advantage, taking the opportunity every enemy leaves open. He is also very observant. He's always looking out for the next attack that he can use to counter. We also see Four use his bow for support against large enemies. With his bow he can see the entire field, and when Wild had gotten injured he could support from the side. Like Four's father said, Four is arrogant. He fights focused, calmly watching, and when the opportunity shows itself, he attacks aggressively. To some, like Four's father, they could see this as arrogance, but in reality it could be more akin to confidence. Confident in one's abilities and skills, being optimistic he can do what needs to be done, but we will talk more about that when we get to personality. Now before we get into personality, we need to take a little stop. Lace, what's this? Magic effects? That wasn't in Sky's video. Well, Sky didn't fall onto this, okay? But Four does. Now, I had seen somebody comment on this a while ago, and if I remember where, and if I can find it again, I'll put the link in the description below. But someone had pointed out that magic has an effect on the links, and we will be going into more detail over each one of these characters that it has affected. But for now, we have Four! There are a few things that we still don't know exactly yet, mainly because they haven't been brought up yet, but for now, what we do know is that Four is short, like really short. This could be from the fact that he has the ability to shrink to the size of a Minish, and that could have a lasting effect on him. We haven't seen all the effects of what the Four Sword has done just yet, so we'll have to put a pin in this for later. Okay, now we can move on to personality. Four's personality. Now we'll be going over the colors later, but for now let's talk about the combined Four. Four is calm, he is aggressive, motivated, and optimistic, but he is also innocent, focused, hot-headed, and collected. But in all else, Four is arrogant. Or in better words, confident. Let's break this down. We're going to start out with how Four sees his equipment, and considering he's a blacksmith, how he sees other people's equipment. As one of the few Links who doesn't use the Master Sword, Four uses the Four Sword. He is confident in his blade. He crafted it himself, even coming off as proud of it, but also comments on how it reveals things about him he wouldn't otherwise want to confront, which is the nature of the Four Sword. The thing is, Four is very cautious around magic items, probably from his experience with the Four Sword. Four doesn't want something to change him even more than it already has. Knowing Time's story about the Master Sword changing him to be able to wield her, Four doesn't wish to touch it. Like how when Four picks up Twilight's artifact, the Shadow Crystal, knowing that he needs a moon pearl to keep it from affecting him, Four knows the danger in magic items and proceeds with caution when using them or being near them. As a smith, 4 crafted his own sword, and we've seen him multiple times in the comic creating more items through smithing. In Melon Part 2, we see 4 making new horse shoes to try and help out around the farm. Then in Divine Dark Reflection Part 2, 4 decides to take up the challenge to forge an unbreakable blade for Wild, which we see him start to make in Miss Her Previous, having the help of Legend, Warriors, Wind, and Hyrule to start the process. It isn't done just yet, and he tells Wild not to use it until they have more time to sit down and finish the blade. He even comments that it will be his best blade he's ever made, showing his confidence in his smithing ability, which is funny because Wild breaks it almost immediately in Sunset Part 5, which we need to put a footnote there for later because he is split when it's revealed to him. But when he does fuse once more, he looks at the blade longingly, only in Dawn Part 2 for him to decide that he needs to fix things. We haven't seen what happens next with it, so that will be for another day. Side note, I think he's gonna go and reforge the sword for Wild. I think that's what he's off doing right now. And lastly, for how 4 sees his equipment, he cares about the items he uses. 4 still uses the shield Zelda had gifted him, and he cares very greatly for it, as well as the fact that he holds the 4 sword in high regard. Overall, 4 knows the value of good equipment. He is cautious when need be, but knows how to keep himself safe. And when 4 creates new items for others or himself, he is confident in his ability to craft and create. 4 tends to be the voice of caution in the chain, from his comments about the Master Sword magic items as well as how he tends to try and stay back during fights until he knows what they are dealing with, always paying attention to what's happening around him. He tends to come off as one of the calmer of the links in the chain. In Divine Dark Reflection Part 1, we see that 4 is trying to figure out what they are dealing with from the limited information they already have, as well as immediately noticing Twilight isn't in the best headspace to talk about this. He also does this with Wind. Throughout the story, he tries to comfort the others, even though he may not be the best at it. With this, we see that 4 cares about those he is traveling with, and he tries his best to be someone that they can talk to if they need something. He's not the best at it, but that's alright. He's trying, and that's what really matters. 4 tends to calculate his movements, trying to reason through things, making sure there is as little war inside of him as possible. But when things get heated, when people he cares about gets injured, 4 loses his temper, immediately attacking the armored monster that had just gravely injured Twilight. And what happens? Wind has to save him. 4 calculates his movements until he loses his temper, showing his hot-headed nature. In Sunset Part 6, after Wild refuses to listen to reason, shoves 4 out of the way with ease, 4 knows he cannot stop Wild by himself. He is half his size, and so he splits. But the 4 sword shows 4's true colors, leaving him open to the sword's influence. Jojo has stated, and I quote, "All the colors make up the sum of his person. The 4 are his true colors, in that they show what he is really like. They reveal the true nature of his character. 4 doesn't hear separate conversations in his head. He doesn't have split or multiple personalities. He is not a system." I'm using very little from the manga. As a side note, Vayu is a link, no link X link. Any I or me from the colors is not meant as a declaration identifying separately from his complete self. Here's some future dialogue from 4. My opinions, my doubts, even my innermost feelings on things. The 4 sword puts all of it on display. End quote. From this, we understand that the 4 sword just amplifies 4's personality. He is not a system. The sword just takes the one person and reveals his true colors. Seeing that the dialogue from 4 from the future hasn't been seen yet, I cannot wait to see what JoJo has planned for him. But for now, let's get into the colors' personalities shown so far. We'll be putting them in order from 1st player to 4th player, because that'll be probably the easiest. So yeah, let's get into this. Described in the manga as the focused and motivated one, Green is the leader of the 4 links. When first separating, he stands ready to take on Wild. After, he kinda just lets the others do their thing until Red starts crying, immediately going and trying to get the others back on topic, stopping Wild and being strong for Twilight. When Wild goes on his tangent about being a failure, Green looks shocked, and when the broken sword is revealed, he looks at the sword. After Wild storms away, Green is sorry for his actions, but is content with the results, until the others start fighting where he has to stop them. He sees himself as the one who needs to worry about himself and the other colors, so he refocuses the colors on the big picture once more, and offers a way for them to release their anger, which none of them take him up on this offer, and in return he refuses the colors back into their single self. From this we see that Green is focused on the bigger picture, making sure the others know what needs to be done. His motivation is what pushes him to step forward and be the one to step up to, and have the others listen to him when they are all arguing, and the others respect him doing so, showing that he isn't just the leader of the colors in name only. Described in the manga as the innocent and optimistic one, Red is seen as the heart of the group, being said that when they split, Red stands there holding his sword with both hands, saying sorry immediately. Being optimistic is kinda hard when you don't know if your friend is going to make it or not. And for Red, this turns into him crying and breaking down, after Green snaps them back to the goal at hand. Building off of how Wild had said that he was a failure, Red confirms that none of this is Wild's fault. As well as when Wild throws the broken sword to the ground, Red looks horrified, and after Wild runs off, Red is more worried about Wild than himself. And lastly, after the fight, Red is the only one looking towards the direction Wild ran off in. From this we see Red is in distress, unable to be optimistic with the idea of Twilight not being able to make it, innocently pointing out the dire situation without thinking of the others' reactions. As well as during the conversation with Wild, he tries to comfort Wild with the "this isn't your fault," but through his own distress and tears, Red's attempt to comfort do nothing but make things worse, showing that when the heart cries, nothing can stop it. Described in the manga as the hot-headed and aggressive one, Blue embodies Four's anger. When first splitting, he is ready for the fight, being the first one to get into Wild's face. When Red starts crying, Blue snaps back. When Wild throws the broken sword to the ground, Blue looks angry. And after Wild runs off, Blue's the first one to point out that Wild would have made things worse. But when Red accuses him of making things worse as well, he accuses Vio, starting the argument between the colors, demanding Vio's reasons, only for Green to stop them. Blue knows that this isn't what they need to be doing and listens to Green's reasoning. He doesn't fight back, but he does stare Vio down when they fuse back together. From this we see Blue's aggressive nature come out when confronting Wild. Wondering where that fight went, Blue also loses his temper yelling at the others, showing his hot-headedness. Blue isn't one who doesn't listen to reason. He wants to hear answers from Vio, who doesn't have any, and when Green gives reasons, Blue settles with them. Blue may be for his anger, but that doesn't mean he won't listen to the others. Described as the calm and collected one, Vio is seen more as a strategist of the colors. He can keep a cool head during fights, and he collects his thoughts, planning ahead. When Four splits, it seems like it was Vio's idea to try and snap Wild back to his senses. When Red breaks down, Vio's dismissing the unneeded facts and going directly to the conclusions, knowing they cannot hinder Twilight's survival, as well as believing in the others to be able to handle the rest of the monsters. He acts as if he knows the answers, but the others know he doesn't. When seeing the broken sword, Vio's the only one looking at Wild, keeping an eye on him and calculating what could happen next. Then, when Wild runs off, he hadn't planned that, but cannot argue with the results. Vio is calm until Blue demands answers from him that he cannot answer, which is when he loses his calm demeanor and starts yelling. And after Green calls them all out, he agrees, commenting that they all need to cool off as well. Then when they fuse back, Vio is returning Blue's look. We see from this Vio keeping calm, trying to solve the problems through reasoning, but when that falls apart, he still tries to stay calm only to fail when accused of making things worse. Vio also tries to collect the information and review it the best he can, but with the distress they are all feeling, it isn't the best for any of their mental states, leaving Vio to not be able to answer Blue's distress. Vio knows they need to calm down and cool off, collecting themselves and seeing reason. But it's hard when they are all not doing so well mentally, planning and strategizing as best he can. Four is a fairly complicated character. Throughout Linked Universe, we see all of the aspects that make up the colors, staying focused on the problem at hand, and calmly taking care of what needs to be done, but also fighting aggressively in battles, only for him to be optimistic around the campfire. But overall, he's a fairly relaxed character, being at peace with himself. Until Twilight gets injured, Four is the voice of caution, staying calm in the situations, and not letting the others get to him. Yeah, he hates being compared to as a child because of his size, but he really doesn't mind about his height. He never lashes out at the others unless if there's a clear reason, and other than that, he is fairly relaxed. 4 cares about those around him. Even after dealing with Wild, when the others finally show up, he is the first line of defense against them, protecting Twilight. That means keeping the others from getting in the way of Hyrule's work, even if it makes him look like the bad guy in their eyes. From that point forward, 4 doesn't smile. Even when Wild comes back looking successful in his own ordeals, 4 cannot bring himself to smile. Even when Twilight is feeling up to making jokes, 4 doesn't laugh like the others do. His eyes are focused on what's in front of him, but as soon as Twilight is shown to be alright, that smile returns, along with tears of joy. He finally decides to finish the last thing he needs to get done, talk to Wild and fix what has been broken. But that hasn't happened yet, so we're just gonna not speculate anymore on that. Moving on, 4's confidence in himself could easily come off as arrogance, like when he tells the story about the Octorok being the size of a mountain. This was him exaggerating considering he was the size of a Minish, but he was confident that he had defeated an enemy that was much larger than him. But, not realizing the detail of him being tiny, his confidence wavers when the others tell tales of something similar, without the size-shifting shenanigans. From everything we've seen from 4, we know he is confident in himself, strong as one, but also strong divided. 4's personality throughout the comic is easily shown as being a combination of green, red, blue, and bio, each one contributing to the whole. When conflict arises within himself, he debates with himself like anybody else. But with the power of the Force Sword, that debate could turn into an argument between himself, like when he split. 4 is himself, together, and divided. 4 has a fairly few amount of secrets, ironically, the first one being along the lines of the ability to shrink to the size of the Minish, which has been shown that Twilight and Wynn both know about this. 4's second secret is the fact that he can split into 4, which is fairly useful, but the only problem being, other than Legend's connection to this, is that it'll show 4's true colors, not having any way to censor himself without physically yelling at himself. Technically, the third thing is Shadow, being one of the few links to actually befriend the dark version of themselves. 4, in the comics, befriended Shadow, which he has a chance of showing up considering in the manga, the Dark Mirror was shattered, but in the game, Zelda took the Dark Mirror, and it didn't break. So it's a gamble if he might show up or not. And lastly, the only thing that I can really point out about this one is the fact that in the Four Swords manga, Bio ended up betraying the others. The reason why I bring this up is because the hero of warriors doesn't like traitors. I doubt this will ever be brought up, but I'm just saying. It's wild. Anyways, that's pretty much on 4's secret end. Out of the chain, 4 is one of the more calmer ones, not picking fights with the others, as well as stepping in to comfort when need be. He tries to fill out any role he needs to in a team, changing how he works depending on the situation as well as who he is teamed up with. He offers his skills and abilities when need be and helps those around him. He also offers up his wisdom on items and situations as they arise. 4 tends to be the more cautious type of the group because of the others, like how when Legend picks up the unknown artifact, it turns him into a rabbit, and at the same time, when 4 picks it up, he's already figured out not to touch it without any way to combat the effects of the dark magic. He also plans ahead. When crafting Wild's new sword, he must have had the materials on him to create the new sword on the road. He doesn't wait to get into town before starting crafting on it, because he knows Wild will need the sword sooner than later. 4's confidence is key to many of these things. He is confident that he can create a sword without a proper smithing table or furnace. He is confident in his knowledge of dark magic as well as how to combat it, and he is confident in his abilities, knowing how to take down enemies much larger than him, using his skills he's learned throughout his adventures. 4 is a complex character, stemming from the fact that he can split, making his personality come out on full display, as well as even as one person he can still show aspects of every one of the colors. His arrogance turns into confidence in who he is, and someone who tries his best to help those around him. He is one, but he is 4, and in the end he is himself. Thank you so much everybody for watching. This took much longer than I actually anticipated it taking,
Considering the fact that I had like 2 weeks where I had lost my voice, and today is the first day that I've been able to actually be able to speak. I can talk loud again. As well as the fact that I realized while I was doing this that I'm not just analyzing one character, I'm analyzing 5. I thought Legends was going to be bad. Well, it probably will be. But also, this, as you see by the timestamp and how long this is, exactly. Anyways, happily we have Time's video coming up next, which will be much nicer. Why will it be much nicer? Because he has 2 games. He had 2 games. And then we'll probably mention a few things from Twilight's thing, because he does show up in there. But still. As well as the fact that after Time's whole video and stuff, in the comments of Time stuff, we're going to have a vote on which timeline and stuff. So look forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But still, thank you for hanging out. Thanks for vibing, chilling, vibing like you do, like do. I hope you guys had fun. I had fun. It was all good fun and dandy and stuff. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys like this video. I don't know if you guys can tell where my voice is like absolutely gone or not, because I did record a couple of lines when I could barely speak. Spoilers, it's at the beginning. Anyways, until next time, bye! I just want to point out one more time that Blue pulls his hair back behind his ear, and I absolutely love that. Also, 4 does that when he's working on the horseshoes and stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, that's pretty much what I all got in the secret ending bit. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye!